Every war has a beginning. But the beginning is never where they tell you it started. Right now, the world is watching America and Iran on the edge of something catastrophic. Missiles, nuclear threats, the entire Middle East holding its breath. But here is the question nobody on the news is asking. How did we actually get here? Because this war, this hatred, this 70-year nightmare between two nations, did not begin with nuclear bombs or proxy armies or sanctions. It began with oil, and one man who dared to say, "This oil belongs to us." His name was Mohammad Mossadegh, and what America did to him in 1953 is the dark secret that explains absolutely everything happening in the world right now. This is the untold story they don't want you to know. Mossadegh was not a radical. He was not a terrorist. He was not an extremist. He was a 69-year-old grandfather, a lawyer, a Democrat, a man who wore suits and wept openly in parliament when he spoke about his country. In 1951, the Iranian people elected him as their prime minister by a landslide. Because he promised them one thing: that Iran's oil would belong to Iran. For decades, a British company called the Anglo-Iranian Oil Company, which would later become BP, had been extracting billions of dollars worth of Iranian oil every single year. Iranian workers lived in poverty. Iranian families had nothing, while British executives lived in mansions on Iranian soil, with their own swimming pools, their own exclusive clubs, where Iranians were not allowed to enter. Mossadegh stood up in parliament and said, "Enough." He nationalized the oil, took it back, gave it to the Iranian people. The ordinary people of Iran went absolutely insane with joy. They carried him on their shoulders through the streets. He was on the cover of Time magazine as Man of the Year in 1951. The entire world celebrated him as a hero of democracy. But in London, and quietly, in Washington, something very different was happening. Britain was furious. They imposed an embargo, froze Iran's assets, tried to strangle the economy. And then they went to the CIA. What happened next was buried in classified documents for over 60 years. The CIA called it Operation Ajax. The plan was simple, brutal, and completely illegal. Destroy Mossadegh, not with bombs, with chaos. CIA agents flooded Tehran with cash. They paid newspaper editors to print lies about Mossadegh. They hired thugs to cause riots in the streets, and then blamed those riots on Mossadegh's supporters. They bribed military generals. They spread rumors that Mossadegh was a communist who would hand Iran to the Soviet Union. They manufactured a reality, and then they used that reality to justify destroying a man. On August 19, 1953, the Iranian military, funded and directed by the CIA, arrested Mohammad Mossadegh. The only democratically elected leader Iran ever had, was overthrown by America. In his place, they reinstalled the Shah, a king, a man who would rule Iran with absolute power, a secret police that tortured dissidents, and complete obedience to Washington. And as a thank you to America for putting him back on the throne, the Shah signed over 40% of Iran's oil fields to American companies. The oil was the point. It was always the oil. Mossadegh was sentenced to 3 years in prison, then placed under house arrest for the rest of his life. He died in 1967, alone, under guard, never having left his house. The Iranian people never forgot. For the next 26 years, the Shah ruled Iran. His secret police, Savak, arrested, tortured and executed thousands of Iranians who dared to speak against him. And America said nothing, because the Shah was their man, because the oil was flowing. But underneath the surface, the rage was building. In 1979, it exploded. The Iranian Revolution, Ayatollah Khamenei, the overthrow of the Shah, Iranians storming the American embassy and taking 52 Americans hostage for 444 days. The world watched in shock. How could this happen? But for Iranians, this was not shock. This was the answer to 1953. This was what 26 years of American-backed torture looked like when it finally broke. From that moment, America and Iran became enemies. And everything that followed, every sanction, every proxy war, every nuclear standoff, every headline you are reading right now, is a direct consequence of one decision made in 1953. The decision to destroy a democracy because it threatened an oil company. America armed Saddam Hussein when he attacked Iran in 1980, a war that killed over 1 million people. America shot down an Iranian passenger plane in 1988, killing all 290 people on board, and never apologized. America pulled out of the nuclear deal in 2018. America assassinated Iran's top general Qasem Soleimani in 2020. And Iran, for its part, funded proxy armies across the Middle East, built a nuclear program in secret, threatened to wipe Israel off the map. Two nations, locked in a cycle of action and reaction, each convinced the other is the villain. And here is the darkest truth of all. They are both right, because this conflict was never really about nuclear weapons, or terrorism, or ideology. It was about a 69-year-old man in a suit who tried to take his country's oil back. And a decision made in a CIA office in 1953 that decided he could not be allowed to succeed. Right now in 2025, American bombs have struck Iranian nuclear facilities. The region is on fire. World leaders are scrambling. People are afraid. But somewhere in Tehran, there are Iranians who look at the smoke rising over their country and think of one name: Mossadegh. And somewhere in Washington, there are men who have never heard that name. Who have no idea what was done in their country's name. Who genuinely cannot understand why Iran hates America so deeply. That gap, between what was done and what was forgotten, is exactly where wars are born. So the next time someone asks you why America and Iran are enemies, you know the answer now. It started with oil. It was buried for 60 years. And the world is still paying the price.